Today we are very excited to welcome Robert. So many of you probably haven't met Robert because Robert is one of our esteemed part-time bootcamp section leaders. He's section leading part-time bootcamp 1, the pioneer batch of part-time bootcamp. He's doing a fantastic job. And while we were gathering last week for our Singapore bootcamp section leader gathering, I ambushed Robert. I was like, hey, do you want to join us for Q&A? And I asked the section leaders and Robert volunteered. And so here we are. And Robert has a very relevant background because he is also a career switcher. He went through General Assembly's bootcamp and he's doing really well in his career. And so I wanted to have Robert share some insights with everyone. Just a quick introduction about Robert. He is currently a software engineer at Glints, a full stack software engineer. He is in between jobs. He's already given notice. He's already accepted an offer to join FoodPanda as a backend engineer. And so he is joining FoodPanda in the coming, I think, weeks or months, but Robert can elaborate on that. But he has he had a great experience at Glints, and he has lots of insights to share from his experience, which he'll share with us. He's currently a section leader, a bootcamp section leader at Rock Academy, as I mentioned. Prior to Glints, Robert was working at a software agency and did coding bootcamp at General Assembly, I think in 2020, if I'm not wrong, 2019 to 2020. And Robert, interestingly, Robert has also been a German teacher as his primary profession before becoming a software engineer for the last 6 years, mostly in Singapore. If not all in Singapore. And so he's a lot of experience as a teacher. And so you can share insights about that. If anyone's interested in German, Robert's the guy. And before that, Robert was doing business work at other companies. Cool. So without further ado, Robert's topic today is going to be talking about soft skills as a software engineer. Completely underrated. Very, very important. And if there's, from my perspective, from talking with Robert, if there's one thing I want to take away, is about how to get help, how to ask questions effectively. Robert will share that and more tips from his experiences as a software engineer. I will hand it over to Robert.
Okay. Hello, guys. Let me share my screen. So, there we go. Everyone can see it, yeah? Yes. All right. So actually, thanks for the introduction, Kai. You kind of like took away a bit.
Sorry.
From my presentation.
Sorry about
that. No, it's fine. So, but yeah, let me repeat real quick, right? Small repetition only here. My name is Robert. As Kai said, I'm the PTBC1 SL section leader, and currently I'm working as a software engineer at Glints. Though I'm joining FoodPanda in a short while. Now, before that, pretty much I did other things. So you would consider me a self-taught software engineer, right? Usually you have these two paths. You have the computer science guys, right? And then we have everyone that's probably assembled here, self-taught route, and a bootcamp grad. That's what I am. So what it looked like for me was studying by myself for about like almost up to 1 year, half a year maybe, and then half a year to 1 year, and then I thought, okay, let's boost up the speed, and take a boot camp. And GA was around back then, Rocket not, unfortunately. And yeah, after that, I really quickly found a job, and yeah, that's where I am right now, basically. I used to be a former a German teacher, and that makes me German, I guess. And I did a lot of different jobs in my life, and I guess it's like a typical bootcamp story that you see for me, where I try different things, and everything I do feels a bit, yeah, okay, it's work, it's generating money. I can put food on my plate. It's fine. But after a while, I feel like, oh, I don't really want to do this. I don't want to sit in an office for like 8 to 10 hours and I don't know, answer emails, and other jobs I did as well. It always was the same story. And so that's how I came up with the decision to be a software engineer. If you want to know more details, feel free to ask later in the Q&A session. Yeah. Yeah. So that's me in a nutshell, I'd say. And feel free to ask more questions later. Let's get to the meat of my presentation. It is soft skills for software engineers, right? And when we think about a software engineer, oftentimes, especially maybe if you're older or we listen to our parents and all, when we were always playing with computers and stuff, then one expectation most people of this job have is like that we live in basements. We live in our mom's basement and we shut off from the society and we just do our thing. We're hacking every day, and you know how it goes with the stereotype. And what the point is of this presentation is to show you that this is not necessarily the case. And the other thing is like that we only have technical skills. Actually we don't only have technical skills. We do have to have soft skills. Now, of course, that is a bit dependent on what kind of company you're working for. Are you working for a one-man show? You have the CEO there, and then it's you as the only developer. Then, of course, that differs a bit in regards to how strong your soft skills need to be. What I'm talking here about more is like modern working environments, like agile working environments where you work in teams of, I don't know, up to 7 people, and you really need to communicate not just with your team members, but also external members of your company, so outside of your team, or maybe with the CTO and et cetera, right? That's what I'm talking about. So oftentimes this is the expectation that we are cavemen and we cannot talk. But what I want to show you is actually, why did my presentation stop? There we go. Is the reality of things, right? And the reality of things as a software engineer, once you're in a working environment, it will rather look like this. Of course, nowadays with COVID, oftentimes it's online and not offline. But let's assume we are offline here for a minute, then you will be in meetings like that, right? You will have to have discussions. You will have to give your opinion, not just on your code actually, right? Or what you want to do technically, but also on products, right? You are planning a product as a team. You need to give your input, your opinion about that product. You need to review designs. You need to give valid points also from a technical perspective to the rest of the team in order to create a better product. You cannot just like accept everything as it comes, because oftentimes maybe the higher ups in a company or the product manager, they think everything is possible. Code just magically flies out of your fingers and you can create Google in one day. Unfortunately, that's not possible. And so your job is to actively participate in meetings, right? And that requires some really important soft skills. One of which would be teamwork. And teamwork, I mean that's a very broad term, right? But I'm talking about really like communicating, working together, contacting each other regularly, frequently. That is very, very important in order to succeed as a software engineer. Then you need to have patience. Patience specifically, why? Because when you tell someone something from a technical perspective, they will most likely not understand. That's kind of like when you first learned MVC at Rocket, maybe, right? Or some new technology, and the SL is like, yeah, that's how it goes, and you're like, oh, what I cannot, and so you need to basically have the patience that the SL usually needs to have for you in order to not flip. You don't want to flip tables in the meeting room. You want to calmly be able to discuss things and bring things closer to each other so everyone is aligned and you can make the best possible decision. And then empathy goes the same. It's kind of like in a similar department, like patience. You not just only need to be patient, but you also need to think about the others, right? How are they thinking, right? And how do you best possibly deliver the content that you're about to produce from your mouth? So that's really, really important as well. As I said, not everyone understands what you mean, and so empathy goes a long, long way. Now, me being German, I tend to have empathy, but oftentimes I'm very direct, right? Which can not hurt some people sometimes, but maybe some people might feel a bit offended. We will get later into an example where people might feel like, hey, what the hell, I'll show you that later in these slides. But actually, direct communication is something that's also very important, as long as you showcase that empathy, right? As long as you don't try to step on other people's toes and you make that clear somehow, right? So that's one part, right? Meetings, teamwork, patience, empathy, giving your opinions is very, very, very important as a software engineer. So we don't just sit in our office or in our room, like me right now working from home, by ourselves and just code 8 hours a day. If I would break it down into hours, I would say, I don't know, at least half of the time I'm actually communicating. I'm coding maybe like 2, 3, 4 hours, maximum 4 hours a day, right? It's not 8 hours straight. Of course, there might be days where there's nothing going on and then you code a bit more, but other than that, it's communication all the time. So this would be another scenario here where you face where you need to be communicating, and I'm pretty sure you guys have that almost every day at Rocket. Pair programming, right? Or maybe looking for help. And here it's also very vital to communicate, to have good soft skills, because if you are not able to convey your problem to the other person, right, to the other developer, they will have a very hard time helping you out. At the same time, if you're not friendly with your colleagues, right, they will be like, I don't have time for pair programming, and then you're stuck alone, and then you need to be a good team player overall, right? So we need to, for pair programming specifically, but actually that goes for everything, right? We need to have clear and direct communication. We need to be able to convey our thoughts in a manner that everyone else will understand what we mean. So oftentimes we need to put things in layman's terms, right? We cannot talk about code specifics, or talking about classes and functions or whatever, because our product manager will not understand that. And when it comes to like getting help from someone else, we need to give them our exact problem, right? More about that very soon. We need to have self-awareness as well. So self-awareness in the sense of, what am I not good at, right? What am I not good at? Where can I improve? Self-awareness is extremely important if you want to grow as a developer. Of course, if you're just looking for your 9 to 5 until the end of your career, maybe, I don't know, just creating like very simple HTML, CSS websites, very simple ones, then self-awareness might not be the most important thing, right? But if you are looking to join a startup, maybe a company to really grow you professionally, a very big company like Google or something, like Fang, anything, then self-awareness is really key. And I would even say it's one of the most important soft skills, because without growth, people will see that you are not developing and they will rather favor other people over you. Now, not that this is a competition. I rather mean to deliver it in a way that you should aim to strive for personal improvement. And it is not even like software engineering related, but overall, I feel, if I look back at my last 3 years that I spent, or 4 years that I spent in regards to software engineering, it was a constant growth timeline, and I was constantly learning new things, always. And I'm always aware of my shortcomings. I mean, not always, but like sometimes you need to sit down and think about, where are my shortcomings? Where can I improve it? And that also puts you at a better position, because then if you talk to your CTO or whatever, right, your managers, you talk to them about the areas of your improvement, and then you can negotiate higher salaries. You can say, hey, I want to get better at this. What if by end of the year I get to this and this level? How about like a $500 raise or something? It puts you in a better position for your job, for your career, but also for your personal growth and your sense of achievement, I'd say. You know, if you are a factory worker, do the same thing throughout for 10 years, you will feel bored, you know. And I feel the gist of a software engineer in general is the constant challenge, the constant growth, right? That is what made me become a software engineer, basically, right? Let's get into the next point, accountability. So everyone's nobody's perfect besides computers. Computers always do the same thing as you instructed it to do, but people are not, right? And so everyone messes up, and sometimes messes up really quite a lot. You know, we do very big mistakes, and so we need to be accountable for these. So we don't try to push things onto others, you know, and we don't try to like slip under the radar. I think that's not a good quality in general as an employee, but especially as software engineers, and especially as juniors, like coming out of the boot camp, right? And you join a fresh company and you basically don't know anything, right? This is really important that you are accountable. You make a mistake, you say, sorry, I messed it up. How can we do it better next time? Right? And it kind of like ties into that self-awareness as well. So it's really, really important that you do that. And your seniors will highly regard you if you do that, because seniors' job is to fix the mistakes of the juniors, right? And the juniors' job is to mess up, actually. And if you don't own your mess ups, then you will not be able to grow. So it's really, really important that you do that. So yeah, that's pretty much a small overview. Let's go into one specific scenario that I felt was extremely vital for my growth in my career, and that is like debugging and pair programming, communication. So basically, when you're at that stage in your projects that you know, maybe where you're stuck for like a full day, and then you're like, oh, I really cannot move on. And then you contact your SLs, right? In my case, I contact my senior and I'm like, I need help. I really need help. I cannot solve it by myself. I don't know how, right? And there are levels to this actually, right? And when I was in my boot camp myself, and when I just started out at work, I was really in level 1, I'd say, right? And I show you some examples, right? So these are my initial experiences asking for help, right? So here my senior said, hey, how about you look it up, you try yourself first before we discuss, right? And then I was like, oh, I don't know what the problem is, but I know what the problem is, but don't know how to solve it. So that's like super unspecific from my side. First of all, I'm asking way prematurely for help, right? Like 5 minutes in, I'm asking for help. And then I know what the problem is, don't know how to solve it. That doesn't tell the other person anything, right? Show you one more example. It was about some schema, right? And he's asking where are you using it? I'm saying in the controller. The controller is a file with like, I don't know, 1,000 lines or something, right? That we have at that point of time, this file here. And then he's like, yeah, how about you paste the code where it's used? I could have done it immediately, right? But I didn't, because I wasn't communicating effectively. And then I gave him like a line here where I said committed a line of code to something, which made the feature impossible to run. And if you think about it from his perspective, he would not be able to first to know what this number means, right? Or that code, and he wouldn't know what is impossible to run, right? So very, very tricky for the other person, and really bad on my side. So that was really like level 1 of communication, I'd say, right? The lowest level. And the same thing here, I had a one-liner question, right? And then I'm just telling him, hey, I'm getting an error, and I'm copy-pasted error, but that doesn't tell him anything what the problem is, right? And so from my side, I felt a bit like this, you know, I was like, why can't you just help me, give me the answer, you know? But in the end, the mistake was not on his side. The mistake was on my side, right? And I found that out quite quickly. And that was because this particular senior, Shubham, right? He gave me some kind of guideline as to how to communicate effectively in order to get help for debugging or even in pair programming. That it's a simple guideline that boosts your efficiency immensely when it comes to that. So the first question, and you should answer that yourself first, right, before you go to him, is what are you trying to do? right? If you write down what are you trying to do, he will know, well, what are you trying to do, right? So he will have the context of it all, right? If I don't tell him what I'm trying to do, he will be like, huh? I don't know. Like there could be a million solutions, but it really depends on your ultimate goal, right? This is really, really important. The second question would then be, what did you try so far? So you write down yourself what you tried, right? And with that, I already see what you're trying to achieve, and I see the way you are trying to approach this problem. And as a code reviewer or like the one helping you, I'll already see a possible flaw in your implementation. Thirdly, you want to share the code, of course, because if I don't see the code, how am I supposed to help you? You know, of course, if it's more like a logical, like a product kind of thing, then yes. But if it's more specifically code related where you need help, then you definitely need to share the code as well. And not all code, right? I'm not talking about you have a file of 500 lines, you copy paste the whole file. I want to know the exact section where you think the error is happening. And then you should answer for yourself, what is the problem you're facing in your attempt, right? So you're trying to get to your goal as of number 1. And then you specify number 4 as what is the problem that you are facing going there, right? By implementing number 2, right? Or number 3 in specific. And oftentimes what I realized when I answered these questions for myself first, I typed them down, right, in Slack or whatever you use to communicate. I typed them down for the person helping me in one message, like a big message, right? And then I suddenly have this epiphany. I'm like, oh, that's the problem, you know, and suddenly I can solve the problem, you know, by myself, just by writing it down. I mean, some people recommend, for example, having a rubber duck on your desk that you explain all of this to, right, instead of writing it down. So I for example have a little Snorlax, you know. So sometimes I talk to my Snorlax and sometimes I write it down, you know, and that kind of like helps you really in debugging and in communicating effectively. I'm not only using these 4 steps, by the way, in technical discussions. I'm trying to do something similar in product discussions and whatnot. When I talk to my product manager, maybe I have a technical problem, but it translates rather to the product, then I need to also write it down for the product manager to understand. I cannot give the product manager like a bunch of code, right? I need to tell them, hey, I don't know, the dates are wrong or something, you know. I cannot use this start date and this end date because of this reason, you know. I will need to really communicate effectively in somewhat of an outline of what I show you here, these 4 questions, and I would highly recommend you do that. I see in my section, right, PTBC1, people are often not doing that, and it's, for me personally, it's often a pain in the ass to help them out, right? Because it's very, very hard to know what you are trying to do if you're not clear about what you're trying to do. And that's really, really vital. I can only recommend you do this, right? And this is also applicable, by the way, in interviews. So some of you, I hope all of you did like these algorithm questions, right, on lead code, etc. And when you have to solve such problems during interviews, you're not just silently coding, right? You should ask them exactly like, what is it that I am supposed to do here, right? And what are the possible errors? What are the possible inputs? You know, you want to clear every information around the context that you're working in, and then you will be able to work efficiently. Very, very important in my opinion.
I just want to interject a little bit. If there's one thing we take away, this is the most important thing. And not just from Robert's talk, I think from our whole, I mean, other than Googling, I would say this is, I don't know, the second most important thing we take away from the entire bootcamp is this, like asking questions and getting help. Thanks, Robert, for sharing all of these.
Yep, that is, yeah, no worries. So this is really, as Kai said, the most important thing. Yeah, definitely. And by actually being able to answer question number 1, what are you trying to do? You already have set yourself up for Google. You know, you know what to Google for. You know, if you say, if your problem is like, oh, my variable is a string, but I need it to be an integer, right? Then you know already. Then you can Google how to convert string to integer, right? Of course, that's like a very simple problem, but it goes even like harder than that, you know. You will see later down the line in your career, definitely there will be very, very hard problems you might have to solve. And if you can Google for them, that's good on you. So yeah, please, if you take one thing from this presentation, take this one here. I shared the slides. Go back to these questions, these four questions, and note them down, and also alter them if you need to, right? I don't see a problem with that at all. If you want to change them up a bit, but the gist should be the same here. Okay, so the key pointers for soft skills, right? Let's go into that. So so what is most important in my opinion, right? That, please note, this is very subjective, it's my opinion, and I left out a few important ones as well. There's way more you can Google as well. They go really in depth about many different soft skills, but for me, number one, I mean, this is not like the priority sequence here, but first one I talk about communication. Communication means it needs to be clear, it needs to be precise, on point, right? You want to be very detailed, and you don't just talk to yourself or one person, you talk in teams, and that is a very important point here. Oftentimes what I see juniors do is they talk via DMs, right? They text me directly, hey, I need help and help and help, but then nobody sees you actually asking, and nobody can evaluate based on that. Ask in public channels, right? In your public team channel, then your whole team can see that you're trying hard and you're trying to make effort to improve, and you want to clear up questions. And then not just only one person can help you, but maybe 5 people can help you, right? And the second thing, or the next thing here, is frequent. Communication needs to be frequent. You don't just communicate it once per 2 weeks, right? Ideally, people see you communicate frequently. That just not just helps your image, it also helps you to gain more knowledge, right? Don't try to solve everything on your own. You work in a team, right? You work in a team, and so use the team. Nobody looks ever stupid if they don't know something. You know, there's no such thing as a stupid question. May it be in bootcamp or may it be at work. You know, many of you people are working anyways already, and you probably know that there's no stupid question. But oftentimes as engineers, we have like this imposter syndrome, and like, oh, I need to know everything. You know, I'm not good enough. But that is not true. Everyone is good and brings their own perspective in some way. And asking a lot of questions when you don't know something just helps you improve yourself and ultimately improve the team, right? And that leads to improving the company. So you are very important for the whole company. Empathy and patience also. Well, not everyone is a programmer, and not everyone understands technical details, right? So as I said before, stay patient, try to feel what the other person is thinking or feeling. Are they a bit unsure about what you're talking about? Clear it up. You know, that's very, very important. Self-awareness, I talk about it. We are not perfect and we can always grow. And then accountability, own your shortcomings. You know, and this is a bit tied to Glints culture values in some sense, these points. I will show you now the most important Glints culture values that helped me the most in my career so far, and really made me focus on myself a bit in regards to where am I and how do I become better. First one is ownership, right? First culture value, ownership. So there's a few sentences here that describe this culture value. So be dedicated and committed, work hard and do your best. Yes, you take on tasks, you want to do your best, right? You don't, I mean, in home office is very, very easy. I'm guilty of that as well. My bed is right behind me, you know. Maybe I work 20 minutes, then I lie on the bed for 30 minutes. You know, everyone has these down phases. I do understand, like, productivity cannot always be 100% all-time high, but you should ideally always work hard and really do your very, very best, right? It's really important to get like to have the average of working hard, right? Take full responsibility for the situation. Think what you can make happen rather than what has happened. So if you mess up majorly, right, don't dwell on the past, right, necessarily. Dwell on the past only in the sense of what can be done better next time. So take this past as a reference for the future to not repeat mistakes, right? And that goes a very long way in terms of growth. And you should really think of, okay, I'm responsible here. Go above and beyond to help others in the company. So I take a lot of bliss out of like helping juniors, for example, or interns, etc. You know, just like how I'm a section leader in the boot camp, I want to help others. That's the reason here. And I want to foster a sense of community. I want to feel like everyone in the team belongs together, right? And that helps strengthen the team. You know, it's more fun to work with people that you like. You know, of course, you can hate each other, but yeah, that's not really fun. So I give you an example of ownership now. So I was responsible for a full-on app crash for all users. So I fucked up the whole production application, and that was not really good. And what afterwards happened is that we initiated a meeting, right, where we discussed what went wrong, what was the exact mistakes, and how can we do it better in the future. So if you mess up, nobody's going to point fingers usually. If you have a good boss, right, and you have a good team and all, nobody's going to point fingers and like, oh, why did you do that, you know, and like, oh, you get a warning one more time and you're out of the company, you know, you're going to get fired. Hopefully nobody's doing that. And so for us, that didn't happen. And this is a big line of text. Feel free to read it afterwards in the slides, okay? I'm going into like what the error was and like how we move forward from now on. And yeah, basically take ownership for if you mess up, no matter how small or big it is, right? Very important. And also for your projects, for example, right? At Rocket, you don't deliver something from your project. Own it. Don't try to sneak under the radar. Go to your SL and say, hey, man, I really couldn't deliver this, you know, because of this and that reason, right? How could I avoid that next time? And then you take that knowledge and you go to the next project and you rock it, you know. Yes, integrity is a very big culture value at Glints as well, which means we have the courage to say the same things behind and in front of a person. No gossiping. You know, everyone knows this toxic culture, like office drama stuff. You know, we want to avoid that. We want to be able to treat everyone with the same respect, right? And we don't want to suck up to our superiors. We just want to do our work and be evaluated based on our performance and not based on like I don't know how often I treat my boss to a beer or something. You know what I mean? So integrity, right? Dare to respectfully challenge decisions. And this is really important as a junior, right? Oftentimes we think like, oh, I'm new. I don't have anything to say. I don't know the products. I don't know nothing. I should just keep my mouth shut and do my work. No, you should challenge decisions. You should bring your own opinions into matters, right? Very, very important. You should definitely do that. You should be accountable and follow through with your commitment. So if you say, hey, I'm going to take this huge task, I want to do that, then you better be willing to also finish it, right? You cannot work on it for 2 days and then be like, oh, it's too hard. Can someone else do it? You know, that's like a no-go usually. And you should never, ever do that. No dropping of balls, basically. It's really, really also a important value here. You should have the courage to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. So let me give you an example of that last point here. So the example is, from my side, I pointed out a major flaw in our designs one day before we wanted to start implementation. So we've been planning something for, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. We went through like multiple design reviews already, and everyone's ready to go, right? And then in the last meeting, one day before that, I noticed something that doesn't make any sense for our users actually, right? At that point of time, you could just be, okay, let's just implement it as it is. Because it's really hard to suddenly say, hey, we have to stop this. We need to rethink, you know, we need to redesign. And so that's what I did. Also long text, feel free to read it later. My colleague posted this here in my regard. So what I prevented was a really major flaw in our designs by doing that, right? And it improved the product immensely, even though it was very short term. So even if it's hard and short term, still say something, right? Your voice has a big power. Okay. Last one, beginner's mindset. And I think this is my most important and most valued culture value. Seek out, consider feedback to keep growing. Very important. Have a growth mindset. Make continuous, never-ending improvement. Kaizen, right? Feel free to look up that term, right? Basically, like this 1% better every day kind of mindset, right? Make decisions with evidence and data instead of rhetoric. So don't just try to use fancy words to sound smart, you know, and then convince people with that, but actually use evidence and data to convince people and to make decisions. And yeah, that's way more valuable than just like sounding nice, you know. Yeah, you know, you all probably know one or two people that like just use like very fancy words and it sounds really smart and all, but in the end, there's no substance to it sometimes, you know, and we want to have substance rather. Self-honesty to admit mistakes, very important, and the courage to change. It's not easy to change, and it's not easy to admit mistakes, but we should always aim for that. Consider multiple points of view. Learn from everyone, and that's one major thing. I can learn from someone who's been coding for 1 day. I can learn from someone who's been coding for 20 years. I can learn from product manager who's not even coding at all. You know, I can learn from everyone. There's always something to take away, always a lesson to pick up. And I think that's very, very important to ingrain in your mind that nobody's perfect, really. We can really work for 20 years. I just had it last week. We have a backend engineer. He's new. He has 20 years experience, right? And I reviewed his code and the code looked good, but he didn't even try to run this code by himself, right? And that messed up our whole staging environment. And then I was like, what? 20 years? Okay, so seemingly even when you're 20 years in, right, you still make very basic mistakes. And so take that knowledge and try to learn from everyone in that regard, even if you have 20 years experience, you know. Very, very important. Reason from first principles, stay open to ideas and don't irrationally attach your ego and opinions, especially that attaching the ego is important. You come up with an idea, don't just try to push it and push it and push it because it's your idea, right? Be open to argumentation, to discussion, and people tell you, hey, that's not good, and you need to be able to accept that as well. I think goes a long way, and not just of course ideally the whole team will be like that, right? That's why it's culture values at Glints here. We look out for these things. Okay, an example. I mean, I don't have any code snippet from Slack here, but basically I did not ever assume I know everything, and I never was closed off for knowledge. So I learned a lot of things. I learned Core, TypeScript, GraphQL, Elasticsearch, React, not just the basics, Next.js, Google Tag Manager, Redux, Redis, and many, many more technologies, and many things also in terms of communication and teamwork I learned, right? Like Jira, task management, etc., time management itself. There's always things to learn. Beginner's mindset is my most favorite culture value. Okay, long enough of me talking. Let's get into a Q&A, I guess.
Yes.
And see what you got for me.
Get a round of applause for Robert. I think that one deserves a round of applause. Thank you, Robert.
That was crazy. That was awesome.
I hope it went a bit too long, huh? I like to talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We will now get some great questions. I was thinking about what questions to start with. I think there have already been some great questions in the pigeonhole, so I think we can start from some of those topics.
Yep.
And Dewey's asking a question about your job search, and I think Eva was also asking a question about your job search. So Dewey's question was, while job hunting for software engineering jobs, were you tempted to take positions in your old industry? Eva was asking, how long did it take you to find your first software engineering job? And what made you stand out from other candidates, for example, versus others with a CS background? So I think maybe just some stories about your job search would be helpful in addressing these questions.
Okay, let me start with the tempted to take jobs in the old industry, right? I think you should not discredit your past You know, even if you're changing job to a software engineer, let's say you've been an insurance agent before, right? And you change to be a software engineer. Don't discredit your past. I would say leverage on that past, right? So if you have the opportunity to begin as a software engineer in your old industry, that puts you way ahead of other candidates already, because the company will know, hey, you know insurance products, you know what we're dealing with here. Other people would have to learn that for half a year, maybe, or 1 year, but you straight there already. I would go for these jobs if you are interested in it, right? And I'm pretty sure, I mean, if you feel like, oh, I hated everything that I did before, you know, then of course go for something else. You need to be happy in the end, right? But if you are willing to go in your old industry, do that. I think it's very beneficial. I seen some of my batchmates basically from GA, they did exactly that. And it's such an easy time finding a job, you know. They just went to like one of their old companies, maybe, hey, I'm a software engineer now. You know, I still know everything. And they're like, okay, let's interview. Easy, you know, maybe skip the skip all the culture fit stuff, right? But just do one technical interview and that's it. I would gladly do that. For me personally, I was freelancing for like multiple language schools, and what they were doing in terms of like their websites and all, I was not really particularly interested. So I did not go for that. Yeah. Now, what was the other question?
Emma's question
How long?
was, yeah.
How long did it take, and what made you stand out from other candidates? Someone who has CS background or CS graduate. Okay, so first and foremost, you should not take me as a reference for how long it should take for you. You know, this is always a bit like playing Toto. You know, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, I guess. For me, it took about like 3 weeks to find a job, right? 2 to 3 weeks was not really long. Though, to be said, the first job I took was like, I'm just gonna do anything as long as I have something on my resume saying software engineer, right? Not everything. I didn't want to work with WordPress websites, for example, right? I took this job. They did like PHP, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? A bit like a stack that I didn't favor necessarily, but I was like, okay, come on, they offered, let's go for the job, you know? Ultimately, I regretted doing that. And luckily, I got laid off because COVID hit and their sales numbers dropped hard, and they laid off like 50% of the staff, you know. So it was just me. I was the freshest hire, so obviously I had to go. And then afterwards, I applied again for like 2 weeks, and I was at Glints. So it can go quite fast. I think it depends highly on one big factor, and that's like how do I stand out from other candidates, right? You cannot discredit your past once again. You need to really work on your LinkedIn and your resume, and both of these need to be geared towards software engineering, but you should utilize what you have done in your past in these two platforms, right, resume and LinkedIn, to highlight, hey, I'm actually showing skills and attributes already that a software engineer needs. So me being a teacher, one example was like, I was saying, I'm really great at documentation, you know, writing things down and giving a good guideline of how to work on things and how to learn things, etc. I geared my resume and my LinkedIn towards that initially, you know. And you need to dig into your current job and your current roles or your previous roles, even if you maybe a fresh, you're just out of NS. Pretty sure NS also has like attributes that you can leverage, maybe like teamwork, you know, you're really great at like working with other people, you know, these kind of things. So that's what sets you apart on one side of things. The other side of things is your projects. Now, you will not always see people asking for your projects, but if they do, you are almost like confirmed, given a success if you did really well on your project, and not just doing it nice in terms of code, right, or in terms of presentation, but also having a project that you are connected with. where you have passion for it, where you can talk to that recruiter or to the tech lead and tell them exactly what you did there and why and what it means to you, you know. And they see that passion in you, and passion is like this big thing that oftentimes they see in self-taught or bootcamp people more than they see in CS grads. Some CS grads are like, oh, I just want to study something, you know, I go for CS, right? But for you guys, and for my case also, we consciously make the decision, hey, I have a career already, but I want to change to become a software engineer. So passion is a major factor for you to show them in order to get a job. You know, so to summarize, right, LinkedIn resume, including also things that are strong from your old job towards software engineering. Your projects, right, really important, and bringing that passion across, right? And then for your first job, it might be also the other factor that I did is like spamming like crazy. I was spamming applications to the point where when recruiters called me, they're like, hey, you applied for the job at our company. I was like, yes, I guess so, you know? So it's a, so I didn't even know who's talking to me anymore. You know, I had to like go back on my careers future or something, or like LinkedIn and look what I applied for, and then hopefully I memorized the name from that phone conversation. So I would really like recommend, if you feel like you don't have a good chance, spam like crazy, you know. But of course, that also depends on, are you willing to take any job? Do you have requirements? Like maybe you don't want to take too much of a pay cut and all, you know. I didn't care about these things. I didn't care about a pay cut, changing career, just like anything, you know. Yeah, exactly, Davey. Thank you. I have a job application tracker file. There's even some apps nowadays that support that.
We
like
provide them at Rocket, and so you will see that when you graduate. We have a whole template, we have a whole system for us to do that.
Yes, I didn't do that. I was a bit reckless. Okay.
Next question from Fung. Do you notice a difference in the workplace between bootcamp grads and folks with CS degrees?
I guess it depends.
Soft skills wise, you said.
Yeah, soft skills wise. It depends really who you are talking to, right? I find Rocket actually filters quite well. I mean, not filters, but like, you know, you do basics and then there's like a screening, right? For you, etc. if you want to join the bootcamp. So that is actually doing a really great job to align you more with what you have to do at work already. I guess sometimes in terms of soft skills, bootcamp students might still be a bit less outspoken. So what I would want to see a lot more from bootcamp students is really leveraging me a lot and asking me a lot of questions whenever they are stuck. Oftentimes they are rather delayed, in my section at least. They wait. I don't know, last project, for example, someone waited like 5 days until they contacted me finally. You know, by right, they should just like contact me immediately. Can we mute that?
I muted it, sir.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, use me, you know, use your section leaders, use your daddy Fung, you know, use Kai, use anyone. It's very important to use people and speak up, and that's like one major difference, I'd say. I like the teamwork that people display in bootcamp already. You know, you work together with your pair programming partner, and you work together maybe as a team in the team projects, and that's a good start. But of course, we need to dig a bit deeper than when it comes to actual work into all of these like soft skills. You know, you will have to improve a bit further on these, but I think it sets you up for a very great start. What you have to do here.
Awesome. Sorry, I forgot to ask earlier. Fung, Eva, Dewey, did Robert answer your questions? Do you have any follow-ups on those?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Next set of questions is generally around your choices of companies like Glints and FoodPanda. Suping asked, why did you choose Glints over other companies? Nicole asked, what prompted your move to FoodPanda? Ray was asking, what was your experience like working at Glints? I think these are all related and would be nice to hear about.
Glints I used to apply by myself, and I liked the platform a lot. To be honest, I really liked the UI and the easy way to apply. So that was one reason that brought me up to it. Also, what made me join is also the whole culture. First of all, it's an engineering-driven company, right? And I can only recommend you go into such companies, because if it's engineering-driven, right, that means the engineering team is big. There's a lot of seniors, and in your team there will be at least 1 or 2 people assigned to you to mentor you after you start out, right? If you join a small company, you do WordPress templates or whatever by yourself. I had an offer like that also at my first before I started. You will be alone, and nobody is able to guide you. You don't know anything yet about best practices. I mean, not anything, but like there's really way more out there in regards to best practices and like really defensive coding and testing and TypeScript and all these kind of things. And you need someone to show you the ropes a bit, right? Someone that looks at your code and not just like, oh, it works, approve, but someone that tells you, hey, you could improve in this area. How about you try this coding pattern? And then bit by bit you gain more knowledge and more knowledge and more knowledge. And Glints was exactly a place like that. I liked the culture values that they displayed. I liked the way that they interviewed with me and talked to me. So that was great. FoodPanda has a similar culture, so I can really identify with that. And so moving forward in my career, taking a bit of a higher responsibility as well, I think that is just a good move for myself. And since I still see the same kind of culture at that company, I feel I hope I will be home there. Yeah.
Awesome. Suping, Nicola, did that answer your questions? Nicole, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Nicole, you there? She asked the question, Lee.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Cool. And Ray's question, what was it like working at Glints? I know you answered this. You've shared a lot of examples during your chat of teammates being supportive and helping us learn. Ray, did you have anything to elaborate on that question?
Yeah, because when I went through your slides, it was what caught my eye was that there was so much emphasis on ethos, culture, and it seemed like Glints was very out to prevent toxicity from forming. I think that's very, very good practice. Based on your experience so far, is this more a common thing, or is this like one of the few you have seen or heard of? Yeah, in this kind of an in a tech firm, yeah.
It is not very common, I'd say. I know my friends took on other jobs, and some of them, even though they work in a team, they're just left alone for them to struggle by themselves. They get a task, they just have to complete it, and nobody cares about your growth, right? And then when it comes to growth, it's often just like very opinionated and not really rather subjective than objective. They don't look at like what is really important from a tech perspective, but it's more like, oh, I like to code this way, and at Glints I didn't experience that a lot. Yeah, I would say Glints is more of a rare example. There definitely are companies out there as well, and most likely you will see that in startups, I think, or in bigger companies that function in a startup kind of way. But please note, it needs to be more like an engineering-driven startup in the end. If you end up more in a startup that's more based on marketing and all that, right, and sales, then it's a different story maybe. You should, during interviews, do your best to find out about these things. You should ask these kind of questions. Will I work in a team? Will I have a mentor? How is the career progression like, right? Do you want to raise me long term from like low level to a higher level engineer, like from junior to senior level? How do you handle these things? Yeah, like how is it when you mess up at work? What happens? How do you handle this? right? You can give examples. What if I crash your app completely? You know what how would you handle this with me personally as a junior? You know, and these kind of questions are very important for you to hopefully end up in a work environment that you enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was very, very helpful. A lot also because I've been around, and some of these startups, when they focus on making quick turnovers and quick results, even if they start with good intentions, sometimes a lot of these processes can also breed toxicity somehow unknowingly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was very important for me to know. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was applying recently, I, for example, had a bit of a gut feeling that I won't like a workplace necessarily. What I did, for example, is also go on LinkedIn and connect with employers of that or employees of that company, and I will reach out to them, ask them like, hey, like my specific questions about like maybe OT, you know, like what's the expectations like working there and all, you know, and they, not all of them are comfortable sharing these kind of things, but the ones that do, it's helpful. Glassdoor helps, I think. Helps. It might help. I mean, the thing is, I only give Glassdoor reviews when I'm salty, you know. Like, so take it with a grain of salt as well, you know.
It's a story for another time, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One star,
Yeah.
you know. Yes.
I think that was a lot of valuable insight to take away. Again, if you take away one thing, it's how to ask questions effectively to get help, and so you can review Robert's slides to come back to that. Robert, did you have any other advice, any final advice or words to leave us with before we go?
I mean, first of all, feel free to add me on LinkedIn or reach out to me on Slack, the Rocket Slack, right? I can answer any further questions also, right? Or give you some guidance, give you my opinions on things. If you want ever code reviews, I can also help you out with that. You know, Rocket is a community. You should also like use it like one, you know, and hopefully once you are a software engineer, maybe you find a way to also contribute and help out others as well. You know, I feel it goes a full cycle. You get help, you give help, you know, and everyone's improving. I think that's first of all one thing I want to say. Then secondly, don't freak out with your upcoming interviews and all, right? You're finding a job. Sometimes it might feel like people just wanna piss you off and like make you fail. But in the end, what companies are trying to do is just see if you're a right fit. You do like algo interviews and suddenly they make you traverse a binary tree. You're like, fuck me, you know. But in the end, they want to just see. Maybe they have binary trees at their work in the work environment, right? And then they want to see, can you do that? You know, and you should just chill, try to solve the problem. If you cannot, so be it. You know, go for a next interview. You know, because you also have to see it like you were maybe not the great fit as well. It's kind of like finding a boyfriend or girlfriend, you know. Sometimes you meet up with people, you meet them on Tinder, and on Tinder they seem nice, and you meet them in person and you're like, oh fuck, you know, never again, you know. And sometimes you're like, oh my god, that's like an awesome person. And it's the same thing for the job, right? Yeah. Yes, correct, Dylan, correct. Yes. Well, I wish you all good luck on your job hunt, on the remaining bootcamp time, right? And really give it your all. The more you put into anything you do, the more you get out of it.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.